So hello from Green-Mopeds. So today we're taking out a little bike that we've actually had for a while but never actually had the time to take it out. And it's called its Chinese name is Cineco City Slicker, also known in the UK as the Lexmoto Cypher. So for people who buy Lexmoto bikes, you will often see the model number as being ZN, and that is the Zongshen SKU. Another example was the Impulse that was with Lexmoto for a little bit. That was also from Zongshen / Cineco. So Cineco are the sort of electric arm of Zongshen. Okay, so Chinese brand. There's actually quite a few if you look at the Zongshen website. If you want to look this up on Cineco, it's cineco.cc, and then find the English language version, which would help, and you'll find all the details there. Anyway, one of the reasons we're doing this is because of Vmoto. And what Vmoto are doing, or have done, is actually got rid of the Derestriction on their motorcycles. So the bike, if there is a bike to compare this to, there is the Vmoto Super Soco TC and the TS. Okay, so those are 1500 watt bikes. And when they first came out, when the TC was actually the very first bike that we sold back in 2018 ever. And just get in front of this guy. It was de-restrictable. So what that meant was it was 28 mile an hour L1E out of the box, and you could go through this little process where you did some sort of magic on the handlebars, which in actual fact is pretty much the same stuff that you do on this bike, and it went up to over 40. So it was ideal really for the 16-year-old wanted their first bike, and at 17 they could then, because at 16 you can only ride 28 miles an hour, at 17 you could then de-restrict this bike, make it go 40. It effectively becomes an L3E. You have to tell your insurer, etc., but you've sort of upgraded the bike without having to buy a new one. And the CUX was the same, Super Soco CUX. Same controller basically, 28 mile out of the box, went through this little process, and miraculously turned into a sort of, well, in the CUX's case it was high 30s. From a strategic point of view though, they've stopped that, and the reason is pretty clear now, and that's down to the TS Street Hunter and the TC Wanderer. They are 45 mile an hour bikes, and the TC Max is a 60 mile an hour bike. So why would you have a 28 mile an hour bike that could also go over 40? It would just erode the reason to buy a Wanderer or a Hunter. So they've basically stopped it. There was a way up until about a year or so ago where if you rolled back the firmware of the TC and TSX, you could basically put it back to a 2019 model, and the same procedure that you went through to de-restrict it worked again. So we could do that. We've still got the kit to do it. It's just that we know that it doesn't work anymore because we've tried it recently. Okay, so in terms of de-restrictable bikes, Super Soco are now out of that game. There are other brands available, mostly from Lexmoto, as it turns out. You've got the G5 as a sort of moped scooter. You've got the C1S as a moped scooter. And you had probably the Elex still does it, but Lexmoto don't do it anymore. and even the Impulse could do it, but they don't do that one anymore either. So really, if you want a de-restrictable motorbike that the 16-year-old can get on, redo his test at 17, and then have a bike that he can still use but get more power out of it, this is your choice now. Okay, so that's really the reason that we're doing this. So a little bit about the bike. They are, from a power perspective, quite comparable. 1.5 kilowatts. This one is not a hub motor. This has got a belt. And I don't know if you can hear anything, but it's remarkably quiet for a belt-driven bike. I mean, another bike that's similar, that's belt-driven, is the TC Max. But you certainly know that the belt's going on that. Whereas on this one, you can hardly hear it. It's quite interesting, considering normally belts do make a noise. Okay, so centrally mounted versus hub. You would think that the acceleration on the hub motor bike would therefore be better. But one of the differences is that the this bike is 72 volt. So 72 volt versus 60 volt. And as we've said many times now, better voltage gives you better acceleration. Okay, so I think this one would, in a drag race, outperform the TC. But bearing in mind, we're talking about a 28 mile an hour drag race. So it's not going to, you know, be earth-shattering or anything. Okay, so 72 volt and 26 amp hours. Now, the TC TSX are 60 volt, 30 amp hours. Okay, so you would think maybe that because it's got a higher amp power on the TC and TSX, that you would get more range. But you have to do the maths. And the maths on the batteries actually is 72 by 26 is greater than 60 by 30 by the huge sum of 72 watts. Okay, so 1.8 kilowatt hours for the TC TSX battery and 1.872 kilowatt hours for this one, which is basically a light bulb's difference. Okay, so therefore, when it comes to range, we know for a fact that the TSX and TC do about 30, 35 miles on one battery. So I would expect the same. If you look at the spec, it talks about 100 kilometers, which is obviously 60 miles. But then they caveat that by saying at 20 kilometers an hour, which is obviously walking distance almost, 16 miles an hour. So not particularly fast. So 30 miles is a lot more like it, I would say. One of the other differences between the two bikes is the batteries being removable or not. So on this one, yes, it's removable. You could take it out if you wanted to. It's underneath here. You undo this little thing here. That's a charging port, by the way. You take this off, but then it's in a sort of frame, which is locked. So it's good, it can't be stolen. The TC TSX batteries are also locked in place. Well, one of them is. But it's a little bit more of a faff than just unclipping it and lifting it out. But if you had to, you could. So for winter, you could actually do that. Okay, so semi-removable, let's say. The TC does, of course, have the option of a second battery, which this one doesn't. So if it's range you're going for and you want to spend the money, which we'll come on to, the TC will beat this one hands down. It will obviously have basically twice the capacity and therefore should do twice the range. Okay. So charging time, another difference between the two is that a TC TSX used to have a 5 amp charger, and charging time there was about 6 to 7 hours. Then they've upgraded all of the chargers on their bikes to being 10 amp, and therefore if you double the amp you halve the charging time if everything's equal. So 3 to 4 hours charging time on one battery for TC and TSX. The charger on the Cypher is 6 amp. Okay, so it will be, in fact the manual says 7 to 8 hours. Okay, so that works about right. If you think a 5 amp charger for a TC was 7 hours, then that should be about right. Okay, so it's basically an overnight or full working day charge. Okay, obviously that charge is still going to be relatively cheap. Okay, if you look at your electricity bill and you see that you're paying 50p a kilowatt hour, and this is 1.8 kilowatts hour of capacity, then you're basically paying 90p to charge the battery to get you your 30 miles. So it's about 2.5 to 3p a mile. Okay, so that's that. One of the things that I wanted to show you was the effect of Derestriction. So lots of people ask, if I'm in a different mode and I potentially have more power available, does it accelerate better or does it handle hills better? So in other words, if you're going up a hill in mode 1, is it more likely to make it if you go up a hill in mode 2 or 3? Okay, so what we're going to do is I've brought it to our Nightingale Lane test hill, and I'm going to take it up there in power mode but restricted, and then I'm going to de-restrict it and take it up there again and seeing if it's any easier. Okay, so let's just check. Yep, so silent indicators, just to let you know. Okay, so here we go. So this is 72 volt, remember. So we're doing 27. Just slow down a little bit for this. Okay, so no real effect on that hill. Bearing in mind this is only 2 horsepower. Okay, so we've had other bikes at 2 horsepower that have struggled with that hill, to be honest. It's a 1 in 7. In fact, the spec on this bike says 14%, which is about 1 in 7 anyway. So, sorry, 14 degrees. So it is that hill is basically at its limit. But what I'll do now is I'm going to show you how to de-restrict it, and then we'll go around again and see if that makes any difference. Right, so basically turn the bike off, and what you have to do, and this is basically the same procedure as you have on a TC, or used to have on a TC, you basically twist the throttle. Okay, so twist the throttle full, squeeze the brake, turn the bike on. You'll see this little warning sign here, the motor, and then count to 5. Okay, and it's as simple as that. On the TC TSX, it used to be count to 10. Do not release the brake, even though it's automatic in parked mode. Just do not release the brake. It's probably better not to. Okay, so that's it. Basically, that's it. A cool thing about this bike that the others don't do is you notice that the side stand is up. Okay. But it still starts in parked. This is how you get out of parked here. So others, you can turn the bike on and it being in ready mode. Okay, so in other words, that button is more of a switch that you push in and out. And some bikes you can turn on and it will start up in ready. Okay, whereas this one, they've thought about that and they've actually made it automatic go into parked regardless of what the side stand switch is doing. Okay, so while we're here, a bit about just around the dash, you've got eco and power modes, you've got disc brakes, front and back chamber. Around the dash, you can change from kilometres to miles through the select button. Interestingly, they've got a reverse mode, and you activate it through the R button here, which is maybe a little bit unusual to actually do that, but you know, it does work. Whether you need the value of a reverse mode on a bike that's so light, don't know. You've got your modes, lights here, full beam dipped, hazard lights, indicators, as I said, silent, then your horn. Okay. Underneath here, you've got storage. I can just show you that as we're parked. It's a decent amount of storage, actually. You can get the charger in it. Okay. Then down here, you've got a USB port. What they might have considered doing is maybe putting something in here to make it a bit smoother, let's say, so that things don't just bounce around in there. Okay, so no actual indication that you've de-restricted it, other than it should now start going faster. Okay, so we'll go round and do the same hill and see how we get on. Okay, so here we go. This time we're in de-restricted. So the conclusion is no difference. Interesting. All right, so that was that. Okay, so we're now on a road that actually allows us to go 40. One of the few around London these days. And we're in eco, but de-restricted. So you can see it does 36 de-restricted, and looks like it'll do over 40, mid-40s in power mode, which is better than I thought. It's basically, I guess, what the TC TSX would do. I feel in this bike, though, it's holding the power better. You have to remember that when you de-restrict a bike, you are basically telling it to go flat out. Okay, so as fast as it can go, and that's it. And on a TC and TSX, anything that wasn't, you know, flat, level ground, all that sort of stuff, would affect what that flat out speed would be. So for some people, they could get 43 out of a de-restricted TC TSX. Other people could only get 40. And that's simply a factor that it was going as fast as it could in the situation that you'd put it in. Okay, but this feels like it would be able to hold its speed better. And that's probably because of the 72 volt. Because the power isn't any different ultimately. Okay, so interesting. Okay, so a little bit more about it. Some of the things that you might have noticed just by looking at me on it is it's relatively small. So, and that is true. It is 1.76 meters long, which compared to a TC would be 1.89 meters long. Okay, so 10 centimeters or so shorter. Although interestingly, it weighs more. So it weighs 82 kilos without the battery, and a TC TSX with without one battery in it would weigh 78 kilos. Okay, so maybe that, I'm not too sure where that extra weight would come from, unless it's just a more rigid frame or something like that. Okay, I guess the elephant in the room is actually wheel size. So this bike, as you can see from down there, is only running on 12-inch wheels. Okay, so Super Soco on their motorcycles are 17-inch. Okay, so if you are one of these people who do not like smaller wheels, then this might not be the bike for you. Okay. Having said that, they're pretty chunky, certainly wider than the TC wheel. In fact, probably wider than the TC Max wheel. So that might be something that puts you off. One of the other things, though, is an app and GPS. So Super Soco, all Super Soco bikes have the app and the GPS for tracking. There is talk of an app on the Cineco CC website, but I think it's only in Chinese, or in China, because I can't find it on Google Play, and I doubt it's on iTunes either. So if you want your GPS for tracking, which is obviously a good thing to have, then again, you have a couple of choices, I guess. Either don't buy this bike, or fit a GPS unit, which is perfectly possible. We have done that for other bikes. For Yadeas, we fitted them. For Horwins, we fitted them. So you could buy a little GPS unit, one that has a battery, so it's basically still live even if the battery's taken out. We can look into that if you really wanted a GPS unit. But by default, Super Soco has one, these do not. Okay. And then colours. So again, on the Chinese website, there are, I think, at least 5 choices of colour. And Super Soco have 4 choices of colour. For whatever reason, Lex have only brought in 2, which is this blue, which is a nice blue, or black with sort of red accents. Okay, so yeah, black or blue, basically, if colour's your thing. Whereas on the TC and all that, you have, well, TC, you have racing green, blue, black, and a sort of, they call it yellow, but it's sort of more of a tan. And on the TSX, you have another 4, so including a red. All right. I guess actually, thinking about it, in terms of styling, this one would probably be more like a TSX than a TC. It's a bit more aggressive in its styling. Okay. And then lastly, I suppose, it is the price. Until yesterday, the TS and TC would have been basically the same price as this. This is now September 2023, and the launch sale from Super Soco has ended, meaning that the single battery TC and TSX are 2,800, whereas this one, you could say it's still in the sale, but maybe it's been quite a permanent sale. This one's only 2,120, so it's £680 less. If you added the second battery to the TC TSX, you're talking nearly £3,500. So I guess the question is, can you live without the range? Can you live without the GPS unit? Can you live with only 2 colours? Can you live with a smaller bike and smaller wheels? But if you're doing sort of 30 miles to work, there and back, and I'm 6'1", 85 kilos, it is made for 2, but a bit like the TC and TSX, you wouldn't put 2 people on it. It's just, I doubt it's got the power for it, to be honest, and the seat is not really suitable for 2 people. This one's got a ridge on it, but I wouldn't say it's a good 2-person bike. So really your question is Derestriction the thing you want? If it really is the thing you want, and you want a motorbike style bike, then this is your choice, basically, until or unless someone comes out with something different. And for the price, £2,120 plus the usual bits and bobs, it's good value. So hopefully that's given you some insight. We'll try and get a static review done on this bike compared to one of the TCs or TSXs, so you can see. And if you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. And any questions, please let us know. And thanks very much.